The rain hammered against the windows of our small apartment in Seattle, mimicking the storm raging inside me. Alaric, a 43-year-old software engineer, had always prided myself on being a logical, rational man. But logic and reason seemed to have abandoned me the moment I saw the text message. It was a simple message, innocuous on the surface, but it shattered my world. "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe." It was addressed to my wife, Bronte, from a number I didn't recognize. Bronte, a vibrant and energetic 41-year-old marketing executive, had been my rock for the past 15 years. We'd met in college, two awkward souls drawn together by a shared love of old movies and bad puns. We'd built a life together, a comfortable, predictable life filled with Sunday brunches, weekend hikes, and quiet evenings spent curled up on the couch with a good book. Or so I thought. The previous few months had been different. Bronte had been working late more often, claiming increased pressure at work. She'd been distant, preoccupied, and less affectionate. I'd chalked it up to stress, offering massages and encouraging her to take some time for herself. Foolishly, I'd believed her now, staring at that single text message on her phone left carelessly on the kitchen counter. The pieces started to fall into place. The late nights, the hushed phone calls, the subtle changes in her behavior, it all pointed to one horrifying conclusion. Bronte was having an affair. My first reaction was disbelief. This couldn't be happening, not to us, not to me. Bronte was Bronte, my Bronte, the woman who knew me better than I knew myself. The woman who always knew how to make me laugh even when I felt like crying. The woman I'd promised to love and cherish till death do us part. But the text message was undeniable. And as I scrolled through her phone, an act I'm not proud of, but one I felt compelled to do, I found more evidence. A string of suggestive messages with the same unknown number. Calendar entries marked business dinner that coincided with her late nights at the office. Photos of Bronte looking happier, more carefree than I'd seen her in years. Photos taken in places I didn't recognize. The man's name was Quintin, according to her contact list. Quintin, the senior partner at her firm. Quintin, the charming, charismatic man I'd met briefly at a company holiday party last year. Quintin, the man who had smiled at Bronte in a way that now made my stomach churn. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The air was thick, suffocating. My head was spinning, my heart pounding. I stumbled to the living room, collapsing onto the couch. I stared blankly at the television, the images flickering across the screen meaningless. I was numb. Utterly, completely numb. How could she do this to me? How could she betray me in such a callous, heartless way? I'd given her everything, my love, my loyalty, my trust. And she'd thrown it all away for what? A fleeting moment of excitement. A cheap thrill, a desperate attempt to recapture her youth. The sound of the front door opening jolted me back to reality. Bronte walked in, her face flushed, her eyes sparkling. "Hey, honey," she said, her voice bright and cheerful. "How was your day?" I couldn't speak. I just stared at her, my eyes filled with a mixture of pain, anger, and disbelief. She frowned. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." I grabbed her phone from the coffee table and shoved it in her face. "Explain this," I said, my voice trembling. Bronte's eyes widened as she read the text message. Her face paled. "Alaric," she stammered, searching for an explanation. "Don't even bother," I said, cutting her off. "I've seen the messages. I've seen the photo. I know everything." Tears welled up in her eyes. "It's not what you think," she pleaded. "It just happened. It didn't mean anything. Not what I think," I repeated, my voice rising. "Are you kidding me? You're having an affair with your boss and you expect me to believe it doesn't mean anything?" "I was lonely," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You've been so distant lately. I felt like you didn't even see me anymore." "Lonely," I scoffed. "I've been working my ass off to provide for us, to give us a good life. And this is how you repay me." "I know I messed up," she said, sobbing. "Please, Alaric, give me another chance. I promise it won't happen again." I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw a stranger. A woman I no longer recognized. A woman who had shattered my trust and destroyed our marriage. "It's too late, Bronte," I said, my voice cold and hard. "It's over." She sank to the floor, her body racked with sobs. "Please don't do this," she begged. "I love you." "No, you don't," I said. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this." I turned and walked away, leaving her there, alone in the wreckage of our shattered life. The next few weeks were a blur. I moved out of our apartment and into a small, sterile studio downtown. I hired a lawyer and filed for divorce. I told my family and friends what had happened, bracing myself for their judgment and pity. But they were supportive, offering words of comfort and encouragement. Bronte, meanwhile, tried everything she could to win me back. She called me incessantly, sent me tearful emails, even showed up at my office begging for forgiveness. But I refused to see her, to speak to her. The pain was too raw, the betrayal too deep. I learned that Quintin had left his wife to be with Bronte. Apparently, he'd promised her the world, a new house, a new car, a new life. But I knew Bronte. I knew her ambition, her desire for validation. Quintin was just a means to an end. I also learned that Bronte had been bad-mouthing me to her friends and family, painting me as a neglectful, uncaring husband who had driven her into Quintin's arms. I was furious, but I refused to engage in her petty games. I knew the truth, and that was all that mattered. The divorce was finalized quickly and without much drama. Bronte got the apartment, the car, and a hefty alimony payment. I got my freedom. I tried to move on with my life, to rebuild what Bronte had destroyed. I threw myself into my work, spending long hours coding and debugging. I started exercising again, running along the Seattle waterfront to clear my head. I reconnected with old friends, going out for drinks and concerts, but the pain lingered. The memories of Bronte, of our life together, haunted me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been a fool, a naive idiot who had been blind to his wife's true nature. One evening, a few months after the divorce, I received a phone call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer it, but something told me I should. "Hello," I said cautiously. "Alaric," a woman's voice said. "This is Vivienne, Quintin's wife." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice tensed. "I wanted to thank you," she said, "for exposing Bronte's affair." I was taken aback. "You knew I suspected," she said, "but I didn't have any proof until you filed for divorce. Then it all became clear." "I'm sorry," I said. "I didn't want to hurt you." "You didn't," she said. "You freed me. I was trapped in a loveless marriage with a man who didn't appreciate me. Now I'm free to find someone who does." "What about Quintin?" I asked. "I kicked him out," she said, her voice cold. "He's living with Bronte now, but I don't think it's going to last." "Why not?" "Because Bronte is using him," she said. "She doesn't love him, she just wants his money and his status. And Quintin is too blind to see it." I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. Karma, it seemed, was finally catching up with Bronte. "I'm glad you're doing okay," I said to Vivienne. "I'm more than okay," she said. "I'm thriving, and I owe it all to you." We talked for a few more minutes, then said our goodbyes. After hanging up the phone, I sat in silence for a long time. I realized that Vivienne was right. I had been freed. Freed from a toxic relationship, freed from a woman who didn't deserve me. I still had a long way to go to heal, but I was finally on the right path. I was no longer defined by Bronte's betrayal. I was Alaric, a man who had been hurt but not broken. A man who was ready to start over. A few months later, I received an email from Bronte. It was a long, rambling message filled with regret and self-pity. She claimed that Quintin had turned out to be a controlling, abusive partner, that he'd squandered all his money and left her penniless, that she was alone and miserable. She begged me to take her back, to forgive her, to give her another chance. I deleted the email without responding. I had no sympathy for her. She had made her choices, and now she had to live with the consequences. I eventually met someone new. Her name was Isolde, and she was everything Bronte wasn't: honest, kind, and genuine. She loved me for who I was, not for what I could give her. We got married a year later, in a small ceremony surrounded by our closest friends and family. As I stood at the altar, looking into Isolde's eyes, I knew that I had finally found true happiness. Bronte's betrayal had been the most painful experience of my life, but it had also been a catalyst for change. It had forced me to reevaluate my priorities, to learn from my mistakes, and to become a stronger, more resilient person. I never saw Bronte again, but I heard through the grapevine that she was still struggling, that she was working a dead-end job and living in a rundown apartment, that she was alone and unhappy. I didn't feel any joy in her misfortune, just a sense of sadness. Sadness for the woman she had once been, sadness for the life we could have had, sadness for the pain she had caused, but I also felt a sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the lessons I had learned, gratitude for the love I had found, gratitude for the life I was now living. Bronte's betrayal had almost destroyed me, but it had also made me who I am today, a man who knows his worth. A man who is not afraid to love again. a man who is finally truly happy, and that I realized was the ultimate revenge.